What's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about the best settings for your lifestyle family photography sessions. Now, of course, it's going to be with what you want to do with your flow. Your best settings may be different from mine, but if you don't have your favorite settings yet, these might be a guide for you depending on your style. Mine are intentional for my own purposes, and they just mesh with my style the best. Now, before we get into the video, I do have a free download for you on tips on your lifestyle sessions, so make sure and download that. It's in the box below. So I personally like to use a wide aperture, and I do this for practical reasons. You know, if we're dark and it's indoors, we need a wider aperture, but also for the dreaminess, for the aesthetic, for the artistic aspect of the shoot. With every situation, I love to get that focal point, that bias. You know, I'll focus on the mom when we're with a newborn, or I'll focus on the newborn and then the mom's a little bit blurry, or, you know, the dad even. So I really like to stick with biases to have that sort of solo shot, but with other people in it. Of course, I will not always shoot wide open. So usually I use a 35mm or 50mm indoors. And when we're doing the family portraits with more than one person in the shot, and I'm not doing the bias shots, I'll do like 3.2 or f4 or something like that. That way I get more of the people in focus. And usually if you put them on the same plane, obviously, then they will be crisper and in focus than when we do the artistic shots, like we're leaning over dad's shoulder to get the baby. We just want to have that idea of dad in the picture, but we don't want him completely in focus. And like I said, a lot of times you might need a wide aperture if you do in-home photography. You might want to use a wide aperture because it might be darker in there. Of course, you'll be beside a window or using some sort of light source like that, but you never know what the situation might be in someone else's home, so a wide aperture might be necessary. So it's really good to practice shooting in wide apertures in your spare time. I've shot wide open for over 10 years now, so I have the ability to do that even when subjects are moving. You also have to take into consideration, if you're going to shoot wide open, your lens choice. Some lenses, when shooting wide open, have a lot of color fringing, and what that means is there's going to be parts of the photograph that have like that green or that magenta fringing going on some of the edges of it. So you do have to be cognizant of what lens you're using. I'm personally in love with the Nikon S lenses for the Z cameras. The S line is amazing. There's very little to no fringing with these lenses. They're just amazing. One thing that really helps when you're shooting wide open or with wider apertures is the back button focus. Now, the reason I in the past used back button focus is different from the reason I use it now, but I still use it. So if you do have children running around, then you can put your camera in back button focus, put it on APC or put it on AFC, and then have the autofocus continually focus on that subject while you're pushing that button down, and then you can use the front button, the shutter button, to actually take the picture. Now, this also brings me to a feature of Nikon cameras, the new Z cameras. So I don't know what kind of system you're using, but there is subject detection. And so I will enable the subject detection if there are children running around or something like that, and I need to focus on one person, one being. Otherwise, if I'm indoors and it's a newborn lifestyle family shoot, then, you know, newborns are not running around. So in that case, I don't necessarily have to use back button focus, but the camera's already there, so I just keep it there and I keep it on AFA, and I don't have to use any sort of subject detection or phase detection or anything because, you know, there's nobody running around. So it really is dependent on the situation that I'm in, but I just wanted to give a little background on if it is a lifestyle session and kids are running around, then I will use the AFC and I will put it in subject detection for the Nikon cameras. Now, this could be called something different if you're using Canon or Sony or Fuji or any of those. So you will have to check with your manual if you have something like that. So I keep my shutter speed at least 2/50th of a second, and this is using 30mm, 50mm lenses. If I'm using a longer lens, then I might actually go for a faster shutter speed. But generally I keep it at 2/50th of a second to make sure that I don't get any sort of motion blur if children are running around. You know, I do a lot of fun stuff, and I like to do a lot of prompts where people are like bumping hips or jumping up and down. So that way I can make sure and get the family and everyone sharp. There's no motion blur going on. If you want motion blur, of course, you can go a little slower than 2/50th of a second, but this is how I keep mine sharp, in focus, and there's no motion blur. Now, I try to stay at a low ISO because, now, like I said, there are situations where you have to raise your ISO. But I try my best to stay at a low ISO if possible, because the lower your ISO, the more dynamic range your photograph is going to have. And what that means is there's going to be brighter colors, it's going to be more vibrant, you have so much more range in the actual colors in your photograph, in the tones, and it also lowers the visible grain or noise in the photograph. So that's the video, guys. If you liked it, please hit like below. Don't forget to subscribe. I try to keep my channel focused on the educational aspect of photography. So if that interests you, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And don't forget your download, and I'll see you guys next time.